now. So guess what? It's Thursday night, and to a lot of people that might mean one thing. And guess what? It means the same thing to me, in that it is time for Wait, Did I Roll a Wild? Your Marvel Crisis Protocol vlog. This week, we're going to be talking about a handful of very awesome, super dope things that a lot of you might be interacting with here in just the next few days. Very specifically, Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And that's LVO. I am joined this week by not only Dan, but Tyson, who does a lot of incredible things at LVO and honestly for the qualifiers all year long. Tyson, hello, how are you? And how have you been?
Good. I'm doing well. I've been stuck in the Diablo vortex. It sounds like everyone else. So, but
very much so.
Nice to merge out and talk to you guys for a little while.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's the thing too. Sometimes you just got to town portal out and you interact with humanity for a little bit, and then you get right back to slaying. I was going to say slaying dungeons, but slaying
the whole dungeon.
I mean, kind of the whole deal. There's some of them that collapse in on themselves and all sorts of other stuff.
Oh,
so
that's pretty cool.
I do think dungeons get decimated a little bit.
Yes, yes, they do.
A little bit. But so we're going to be talking about games we've played this past week. Dan and I got to play some Shatterpoint earlier this week. I even hobbied a little bit this week. That's right. And by that I mean I watched Lindsay prime my range tools for Shatterpoint.
There's always a catch.
There is. I do actually have a follow up to that. What that I think
it's true
technically counts. Hey Otis, hey Keebler. That I think technically counts as hobbying, or at least pre-hobbying. That we'll get into in a little bit.
Is it like listening to an audiobook counts as reading?
Yes, actually, it's very specifically within that exact vein.
All right, I can accept it then.
All right, so I'm going to just kind of mark that down right away that I, in fact, hobby this week before we actually get into what that was. But Tyson, have you played any games of MCP or anything else this week outside of the Diablos?
Yeah, well, not this week. Last weekend? I actually went to a tournament, which was first time in forever. I did amazing. I went 1-3.
Hey, that one is a big deal.
That's where I'm at in my current league. So
exactly.
I usually get that one from the bye. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. No, I went 1-3, and then I wanted to hang out with some friends for the last round. So, but it was fun. It was at the Bay Area Open. So when they had War Machine up there, or sorry, MCP up there. So
that's and this was the first year that MCP was at BAO, right?
Yes, it was.
So how was that event as a whole?
We had like 20 people or so. It was just Saturday was the LVO qualifier, and then actually they could have had more, but we were space capped. You know, it was basically all 40K, and then they fill in a little bit of space that they can with the other events. So it was awesome. I got to see a bunch of people. It was nice being a player and not a TO for once. So
I wish I knew what that was like. I'll get there one day.
Someday.
But well, that's awesome, because I know that, and actually I completely forgot to do this, but just so everyone knows, this podcast and this network is in fact sponsored by Frontline Gaming. So if you're looking for mats, terrain, or event tickets, so very specifically this Saturday when tickets go live for LVO 2024, make sure to use our link. It's in the show notes, it's in the description, it's in all those good places. Boom, right there. Thank you, Dan.
Got it.
To show that in chat, and that helps support us very directly, so we really appreciate that. It costs you nothing, and you can help having more streaming from more Frontline Gaming events, which is doper McGo.
Yes.
But I know that MCP got added somewhat last minute to BAO, so this was the first year that MCP was there, correct?
Yes. Yeah, it was the first year MCP was there. Originally, it was, what was it? Brian or I'm forgetting his name. I met him when he was up there. He was a local that's running the stuff, and they kind of cobbled together 16 tables of stuff. And then once I found out about it, I asked like, "Hey, I want to come, but like all your tickets are sold out. If I bring some stuff, can we add more?" And we're like, "Sure."
Nice.
So yeah, so we grabbed some more people and we filled up to what we could, and it was a grand old time. So the venue was nice. It's at the hotel that's near where Kubla Khan is. So it's like a 10-minute walk or something like that, and their own little parking lot. Yeah, and so it's full on ballroom, and then downstairs they had the traditional bar and hotel food restaurant stuff. So it's super convenient. and it was really nice.
Well, I
And
really
you got to
like.
see lots of cool stuff.
I really like that it was kind of entered in so late into the cycle for BAO, but that it was still space capped, or like you filled all the tables. Like that's awesome. That,
Yeah.
I mean, to
Yeah.
me, that says MCP's in a great place. Even last minute, being able to fit in a bunch of people and get a bunch of people around is awesome.
Sounds
Awesome, awesome.
like the community in a nutshell too, where you were like, "Hey, I want to play and allow more people to play. Let me bring stuff to support the community," and that's just so MCP to me. That's awesome.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, people bring bring their terrain. Everyone's bringing their little crate of terrain, and putting it out on the tables and stuff like that. It was great.
So, what did you end up running at Bay Area Open?
I've been running the same Brotherhood Cabal list that I've had for a while, and I think it was one that I cribbed off of DeLuca a while ago, and
Yeah.
so it's what Mags Mystique. Um, why am I forgetting Big Kitty's name?
Oh,
Malekith?
I'm
Malekith.
spacing Malekith. There
As
we
soon
go.
as you
It
said
took me a
spaced on
second.
it too, I also was like,
I would have known if you didn't ask me, right?
Yeah, exactly. Jugs, Rhino, just switched in Red Skull to Pyro,
Ooh, nice.
and I'm
Like
sure I'm
Pyro.
missing someone else. But I end up playing a lot of the time, so it's a lot of Mystique, and then a lot of Malketh is what, and then occasionally Magneto hits the table. But that's more for just fun and kind of some up the middle games, but for high points.
So in chat, I must have missed this when he first said it, but Keebler said, "Must be awkward around Kubla Khan with all the horse raids and fires." Just, I love his sense of humor a lot.
That's really good.
And then we also have two Brotherhood players in chat being like, Brotherhood players are the worst, and the other Brotherhood player being like, yeah, right. But
I mean, at least I've been playing Brotherhood for like a year and like a while before it was super popular, but I've just never been good. So at least I don't have to feel to myself that I'm just jumping on the bandwagon of, hey, they're the hot shit right now. But
right.
I do have, it's a meta list. Like it's all mean. Just I'm not a very good player, so at least I know what it does.
I've been running a list recently that I've actually really been enjoying. I haven't been doing super well with it, but it's Crime Syndicate with versatile strategy kind of as the main linchpin with Kingpin and New MODOK, who I adore New MODOK so much. But using that Kingpin affiliation for the first round or two, and then as people get injured, switching to the MODOK one. I've really been enjoying it quite a lot. I'm 1-3 with
Okay.
it,
Hey,
but
you got that one.
they're always
Yeah.
close games. So
Yeah, we've got a local here that's playing. I think he went to semifinals in TTS, and then I think he's undefeated so far in this TTS season.
oh, nice.
But his main is like Malkith, MODOK, and then go from there. And so
Yeah.
he's rocking a lot of the big boys. It's pretty scary.
And how about hobbying? Did you paint anything or assemble anything this past week?
So recently I just hit 100% for MCP painted.
Nice.
So
Nice.
of everything, I still haven't
Golf
picked
clap.
up the Gwenpool Squirrel Glow box, but that's waiting for me. And I just finished this 3D print like pirateer cannoness. She's like holding a kind of a cannon with underslung cannonballs and like a minigun, kind of
Dope.
with two hands, like holding it like a
Yeah.
minigun.
That's
And
awesome.
so I'm painting it up for a sample. So I'm running a painting class at my
Oh.
local game store this Saturday, and so that's the sample for it. And then I'll then I'll make a whole bunch of other figures of the same thing, and they show up primed. And then we go through like a painting class, and this is how you do, this is how you paint, this is how you do this, and they'll usually have specific topics and stuff like that. So that's what I painted this week.
Nice. Dan, how about you?
I've done a fair bit of hobbying since Shatterpoint came
I
out.
was gonna say, I know you've
Been a
probably
lot
been
of
pretty busy.
yeah, been a lot of building. Obviously, I did pick up the Obi-Wan expansion yesterday and got that all built.
Yeah.
Well,
He's really good.
I like him a lot.
Yeah.
And I want to have at least, probably end up having all of it, but at least all the Republic stuff and clones and Jedi,
Yeah.
because I love Jedi in general. And I got Padawan Ahsoka like table ready. I want to put a bit more time and effort into her just because Ahsoka's my favorite Star Wars character, so I want both versions to be like
as good. Yeah.
at the standard I want them to be, not just let's get them base coated and it's some some shades and maybe a little bit of highlights for stream because they're not that detailed on stream anyway. But I was pretty happy with where Padawan Ahsoka is right now, and I need to get back to 100% caught up for MCP. I've been slacking.
I mean, we've had a lot going on with Shatterpoint.
You guys are busy.
So I get that. I love how Keebler in chat says, I found the best way to ensure your MCP models are all painted is to just sell the unpainted ones.
That is one way to do it.
And yes, Static, that is a giant inflatable Raise energy can. We don't promote them as much as we should, but if you use code professional casual at checkout at repsports.com, honestly,
15%.
Their stuff tastes great. It's energy drinks and protein and
I legitimately had one today before working out.
right. That's
The
really good.
Can of blue, whatever, blue raz.
Blue Shock.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good.
Oh, I think you get 15% off with that code. They have a product too called Hypersleep that literally is the only thing that can put me down. So like, I really like it quite
Full
a
of
bit.
horse tranquilizers.
Yeah, it probably is.
They get you coming and going. They get the stims in, and then they get
Correct.
the sleepy time in.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's like Dayquil and NyQuil in the same company. It's super dope. But
My favorite thing about them right now is that you gave me some samples,
yeah.
but forgot to like label them before you gave them to me, and they're like they don't say exactly what they are.
Yeah, so
and
I'm
like one is like a hydrate one, and one is a go to sleep one, and I've been scared to try. I don't know when to try it out, because like if I have it at the wrong time, I might be real sleepy at the wrong time.
Yeah, you gotta try like 3 p.m. So either you'll be good, into the late evening, or you go to bed about 6.
Luckily, the summer's coming up, so
Yeah.
it's like I could do that, and it won't be a big deal because I won't be at work.
They have energy tea, not energy teas necessarily, but like a lower caffeinated like Monster Rehab coming out soon. I'm in the insiders group for them, so like they send me a bunch of like free samples and stuff. And yeah, they have like it's like a peach tea, a sweet tea, and an iced tea that are like they're only like 80 milligrams of caffeine, but it has like a bunch of B vitamins and stuff, so you can have it later in the day, which is kind of nice.
That's a nice amount though, so you're not like vibrating.
But they do only
Yep.
label the promo or the like trial whatever packages with lot numbers, so you have to like go to the sheet to like look at which one because they're not fully branded yet and they're not fully like
Yeah, it's just
Okay.
mystery packages.
yeah. So I'm like, all right. So I'm pretty certain this packet is energy, but like I lost the sheet that tells me what it is, so I'll just
Going
give
off
one of each to
memory?
Dan and hopefully he'll figure it out and tell me.
I'm glad I'm your guinea pig.
I mean, it all tastes good. Right?
True.
It's just, sometimes you'll be flying through a wall at 11 p.m. and other times you'll be asleep at 8 a.m. So,
Oh, that would be real bad.
but yeah, thanks to Raise Energy. And I'm sorry that I forget to talk about you as much as I do. But as far as hobby stuff this week, I watched Taylor's Assembly B1 video.
I did too.
That's over on the YouTube. So in the Shatterpoint groups, and I know we're talking a lot about Shatterpoint, but I promise it won't be going on much longer.
But Shatterpoint's awesome.
It
And it's
really
the flavor.
is.
It's super
It is
cool.
the flavor of the month. Well,
And-
not flavor. Not that it's bad, but you know what I mean.
Oh,
the hot
yeah,
stuff.
It is the hot stuff for sure. And it's gonna be kind of have you seen those memes about like the current games that are out there where it's like Jedi Survivor and what's the other one that just came out?
Tears of the Kingdom.
No, before Tears of the Kingdom. There was something else everyone was playing before that
Oh,
because then
before
Tears of the
Tears?
Kingdom like kicks open the
Oh,
door
yeah,
and takes
yeah,
them both out or whatever.
I did see that one. It was a good
Oh,
one.
Jedi Survivor?
Yes, Jedi Survivor and what did I say before that? I might
That's
have
what you said. I don't remember what else.
yeah.
was the
Anyway,
name, but
good podcasting is talking about memes you can't remember.
Yeah.
But
You're old men. You're just trying to describe a meme. You know what this meme I saw?
I mean, I don't feel it was that long ago, just for a couple years, where that was most of my conversations. Like, I saw this TikTok that X, Y, or Z, or you don't understand. I was on Imager, and I'm like trying to explain the meta of a meme to people that had no idea what it was. But yeah. But I watched that B1 video because a lot of people in the groups have been having issues getting the B1s assembled. And Taylor was like, all right, I know how to do this. So he went and he made a video, and it was actually pretty dope. There was a lot of things in there that I was completely unaware of as far as like actual techniques and stuff. Using tack to hold things together, like pre-assembly. I had always like, okay, yeah, I'll tack things to the top of a medicine bottle to paint it. But as far as like holding things in place so they're actually like standing in the right way, and especially those little
Yeah.
fiddly bits in the bots, it's like, oh, it's a great call.
Right.
Never knew that.
My technique is usually just drop it or have a piece fall off and just yell at it until I'm done.
I mean, that's why I quit hobbying, was because I have big, fat, stupid hands. And whenever I try to assemble something, and I tried to assemble so many Tyranids, I would smash stuff, or I would shoot a Gore Grunta like ear off into the corner
still
and never
in the
find
store
it again.
Somewhere.
And it would make me so frustrated each time. And I'm a latecomer to plastic glue as well, so I was using, and actually you and Taylor both yelled at me about it, the gel Loctite super glue.
Yeah, I don't like the gel stuff.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing that I've been using because I didn't know any better.
I mean, your ignorance. We all have gone through it.
Right, but that's the thing. I quit because I was so frustrated at how that stuff worked. So now I'm like, okay, maybe I'll come back into it. And watching Taylor's video and seeing some other hobbying stuff, I'm like, all right, maybe I can come around back into this. But
the only time I've had any success with a gel glue was when I was building the Glacier King for trolls in Hordes, and it was plastic and metal, and where it would fit, there were huge gaps.
Yeah.
So the gel glue worked really well as a gap filler. So like once I got it to stay enough, I'd just pour a bunch of that gel in there, and then it filled the gap.
I mean, so good. The news is I have a bunch of it still, so like I can still use it as a gap filler. But and this is one thing that I saw in the comments a lot around Taylor's video. And Tyson, this is a question for you. Are you plastic glue people or super glue people, or a combo of both?
Combo of both. Well, it depends on the material you're using.
Mm-hmm.
So metal miniatures, resin miniatures, you need super glue. I like the medium viscosity super glue. I go through a lot of it, and then I use an accelerant
Okay.
to, so they branded like Zip Kicker, or there's some other accelerants. I just buy a big bottle of it. So you can get it in there, you score the pieces, you put your medium thick. I don't like the gels as much because they have a lot of, I know it's not specifically a tryptotropic agent in it, but the thickener that makes it gel, it's not going to bond as well. So the semi-thick ones, and I have a Star Industries one, and then there's BSI, which actually is like 30 minutes from me. Is
that's awesome.
the BSI factory.
Oh wow.
And anyways, but so those work really well, especially on something that's cleaned and scored, and then you can use accelerant on it. I've never had anything break, and it's rock hard. For any plastic bottles, you want to be using plastic glue. I like the testers used to make it. It was a black bottle with a long needle, and they don't make it anymore. And so Revell makes it, and then there's another. What's the Tamaya makes like a brush on white, like thin water solvent plastic glue. And that's what you should be using for all these kits. It bonds almost instantly with especially the small stuff, and then you just let it sit there for 20 minutes and then it'll hard it. So you can stick like tiny little parts on stuff, and your fingers won't stick to it because it's not super glue. And they have these little tiny needle applicators that you can get the smallest, tiniest little drop right there. Or use the brush applicator that the other one has. So that's my preferred ways of gluing stuff.
Nice. I just used the Tamiya with the brush last night.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah.
For the first time.
Good.
Another local guy who had it at the store. I was building stuff at the store, and I to change the head on Bo-Katan, I just couldn't get it to set.
Oh yeah.
With the super glue, and he was like, "I got plastic glue right here," and I was like, "Yeah, great. That's the perfect place to do it."
Hell yeah.
And it was. I just went boop, and it was good to go.
Speaking of, oh, sorry, go ahead.
And plastic glue is always much better to use in super glue than plastic bottles because that's what it's made for, and it makes it melts it and dissolves it, and then evaporates out, so you actually have just a melted plastic bond instead of super glue adhering two different surfaces to the super glue intermediate and hoping that holds.
So the only thing I'll say, actually I have two things here. So first, as far as having a factory close to you, we have a friend that works there as well. We're about half an hour from Golden Paints, and apparently they are also going to be doing some of the Turbo Dork stuff.
Yeah.
Or making the paint that then Turbo Dork will add their like pigment and stuff to, which I thought was super dope.
Nice.
But as far as my, like, I have one huge shout out to Super Glue, especially the Loctite gel. And
So good.
on Memorial Day, when we came back from Iron Weld, I left my Sentinel Prime in Dan's cup holder.
Yep.
Which history has shown that
Not a safe
when
place.
I mean, that sounds risky just to start with.
So, and specifically for me, because Chuck used to do a bunch of my painting, and he always did such a phenomenal job. And it was not once, and probably not even twice, but probably 3 times where he would come to record an episode of Elite 8 Showdown. He would give me the model he had done for me. I'd put it in my cup holder. I would forget to bring it in. And then the next morning I would come in and I'd slam my coffee cup into my cup holder, and I just demolished an Electra. I demolished a Storm and a Hand Ninjas. And the thing is that it was consecutive weeks for Electra and the Hand Ninjas, which is just...
You just got to learn.
Right, and he did so much custom work with it too, where he took the heads off and he did it as Ermac, Reptile, and Scorpion from Mortal Kombat. So he put like the little skull head on the Hand Ninja and stuff. And yeah, I just obliterated it with a coffee mug. And
I would so fire you as a client.
yeah, well, you know what? That happened exactly.
That's true. He said no more.
Yeah, it was certainly the Iron Fist with the cut-off jean shorts, the rollerblades, and the pink tank top that I think pushed him over the edge. But that model just looked incredible. He did such a fantastic job with it.
Wait, Otis, you're getting ahead. The Sentinel Prime did not get crushed in the cup holder.
Yeah, so for those of you thinking that, oh, well, Tim left it in Dan's car, Dan sent me a picture when he got home. He's like, hey, I found a special friend after he dropped us off. And I was like, oh, no, it's in a cup holder. But it's not my cup holder, so he's probably safe. So we went to Memorial Day at the Kohl's for our friend's birthday party. And Dan gave me Sentinel Prime back. And
Safe and sound.
Safe and sound. He was 100% great.
Not a scratch on it.
So I had Sentinel Prime in one hand, and I had my son in the other hand, and I put Sentinel Prime on the roof of the car, and then I buckle my son in. I close the door. I get in my seat, and I sit down, and I buckle up. We pull out, and the Kohl's live like on a state highway, so it's like immediately out of the driveway. It's like 55 miles an hour. And forgot Sentinel Prime on the roof. So then we heard something rattle down my car and then fall off. And Lindsay was like, oh no, what was that? And I turned around, I was like, oh, it's probably just my cup. And then I look to the side, and I was like, oh, nope, that's my cup. And I see blue and purple all over the road. And I'm like, oh no.
Oh no.
She pulls over, and I rush out of the car. I'm dodging traffic, like waving people down like I have a flat or something and telling them to go around to the side. So I can pick up the Sentinel head. And I had made that little spider bot with 2 of the extra Sentinel hands with a head on top that was on the base.
So good.
And because it was super glued and not plastic glued, it just broke apart in 3 perfect pieces, unscratched, unscathed. It's already back together. And like the head and shoulder mount that like sits into the chest was just one piece. It just fell off. The little spider bot that I put on the bottom just fell off. And the leg and body and arms fell off the base. And that was it. I saw that rolling down the state highway being like, oh no, it's destroyed forever. This is my favorite thing ever. It has a mustache. It has all this stuff. But even like the little propaganda posters that you can put on stuff, like those were completely fine. There's no paint scratching. It wasn't even varnished. Like as far as super glue goes, use it if you intend to leave it on top of your car and drive away with it. That's the only thing that I'll say.
People are irate in chat.
Yeah.
Bro, Otis says that's even worse than the cup holder.
But Lindsay put it back together. We stopped hyperventilating by the time we got home. It was fine. It was
okay,
fine.
man.
It was fine.
Crash test approved.
But let's get on to the main story, I guess. Chat, I understand as well. I have ruined a lot of models with really stupid moves, and it's normally just my inaction that does it.
Well, here's the good news.
Yeah.
Your models just live at the studio now, so
That's
they're
true.
pretty safe.
They are. They're there. I don't.
They're
have to bring them-
chaperoned now.
Unfortunately, by Tim.
Yeah, also that. But LVO. So we went to LVO for the first time this past year. That's where I think the first time we got to meet Tyson in person. And it was an absolutely dope experience.
It was awesome.
The week, if I recall, after LVO of this year, there was signs up and the electric boards and stuff everywhere that they were going to be doing a ton of work to the hotel. That it was under new ownership, but they hadn't switched things over yet. So I remember I was watching Kirchhoff's follow-up video from his win at LVO this past year. And we had a similar experience as far as the little creepy like voyeur windows in the shower.
So weird. Why were they there?
I didn't have those in my room, but
They're only in one of the towers we learned, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
Window in the shower to the
main sleeping area. Yeah.
Wow.
What?
So we're hoping that gets rectified potentially this next year. We just put a bunch of tall boys in the window, and that actually worked out pretty well.
Except they kept cleaning it.
Right.
And removing
It's like,
them.
no, these are mine.
They're here for a reason.
But yeah, so LVO was an absolutely awesome experience for us last year. We got to meet a bunch of great people, and it's always nice to see a lot of familiar faces as well. We've been able to hang out with Omnis on a number of different occasions between Adepticon, both years that we've gone, LVO. I think those are the only times we've been able to hang out with him in person.
I believe
Probably. You guys didn't go to Texas last year, did you?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a really cool experience for us, and we're very excited for it next year. And we want to give a huge shout out going into this conversation to Tyson specifically, who handles all of the points and the qualifying events and kind of organizes all that. He's the person that you report to if you run an event and get it set up. So he does a ton of work all throughout the year and did a massive amount of work for LVO. I'm assuming every year, by supplying just metric tons of terrain, and that's incredibly painted as well. So Tyson, just first off, thank you so much for everything that you do for not only LVO, but for MCP as a whole.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. It's appreciated.
But tell me a little bit about what it takes to get that many tables and stuff around for LVO. Like, what is that process like?
Well, so the process, fortunately, I think my microphone is rejecting all the noise, is I have two 3D printers running in this office. If I get a little closer, you'll start hearing them. That basically run 24/7 for most of the year.
Wow.
Except when they're down for maintenance. And then I have two resin printers in the garage that are kicking out all the little resin pieces for all the tables, the new tables I'm doing and stuff like that, and other associated bits and bobs. And so they pretty much just keep going, and I have a crate here in the office that I just keep throwing the terrain as it's finished into there. And then eventually, hopefully not within a month, but as it comes as it starts getting a little closer to the event, I'll start like batch painting everything. So like, I don't know if when I was posting pictures of it last year and just like the month before, it's like, here's another full 4x8 table full of terrain that's painted, and then the next day here's another 4x8 table of terrain that's painted. And so
impressive.
Yeah.
Instead of so that's kind of the system I have set up for making what will be now 175 tables of terrain for this year. No, 150. Yeah, about 175 tables of terrain for this year.
Wow.
So speaking of that specific number, right? So the next year at LVO, we're looking at 350, right? As far as players?
Yes. Yeah. So that's what I believe. It's 3 to 350. I'd have to check with Kicker from Frontline Gaming. But I believe we talked about 350
That's amazing.
starting out.
So
Yeah. So it's going to be super crazy. Fortunately, to plug Frontline Gaming's new pre-printed MDF laser cut MCP terrain, we will be using a bunch of that. So hopefully at SoCal Open, they're going to give me like 50 sets of that.
Oh,
and
nice.
then I'm going to, but then I'm going to assemble it all for them, which is actually the worst part of it, and then crate them. And then I'll bring them to LVO, but then they get to keep those for all the rest of their events too. So that'll be like the traveling set for Frontline.
That makes a lot of sense. So we're going to be streaming ACO next weekend. And I was talking to, I believe, Seth, and I think we're going to be getting a set of that, like one set to have on the stream table. So we're super excited for that because that stuff, I mean, it's a ton of terrain.
Yeah. It's a big set.
And
Yeah,
it's
it's a great deal for people. I mean, just to plug it because I put together a
yeah.
few of them. It looks good. It plays really well with MCP. Like everything's sized pretty appropriately. You know, we have
Mhm.
nice flat tops. It is MDF, but it's it with the printing, it doesn't really look like it too much. And for what it is, if you just want to glue something together and have a table ready to go out of the box, it's great stuff for that.
Well, that's one of those things too. Talking to so many different hobbyists, everyone kind of likes certain aspects of the hobby portion and doesn't like other aspects. Taylor loves painting and assembling terrain.
Yeah, he does.
Dan, you're not a huge fan of painting terrain.
No, I don't mind assembling it.
Yeah.
I like how you're specific there.
Um,
Yes.
I am awful at doing both parts of that.
Have you tried to paint terrain before?
Have I tried to paint terrain?
Yes.
Yes, I have tried to, but Lindsay was just too fast. She took it right out of my hand.
That's not what I mean, and you know it.
No, the only thing I've really ever tried to paint was a Turvagon with, and that was right after the release of contrast paints, and that might not have been the best model to start with because it's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like got tired and ran out of paint. I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I'm just slapping stuff on here. But
I was painting so exhausting.
But so the really cool thing about the Frontline Gaming MDF terrain is that it's printed on, right? So no paint, just assembly. You're good to go. It's a ton of terrain for both for a cityscape that just does. I don't know. I think it's pretty dope.
Yeah, it's probably about I mean, it's a full board plus some extras, I think.
Yeah.
Is what they did there. Like 2 sets kind of do 3 boards. Is what I remember, at least from Bay Area Open. So.
And so at the Salt City GT, which is going to be happening the weekend of July 7th. So if you're in the Syracuse area, it's upstate New York. There's an airport there as well. If you're ever interested in heading over there, you can head to thesaltcitygt.com, I believe. Is the
I'll double check it. Yeah, I think you have to have the in there.
But Brian Horton of the 13th Legion picked up, I believe, 12 sets of the Frontline Gaming MDF terrain. So all of the tables that we'll be running at that particular event, and that is an LVO qualifier as well.
So that's why all that MCP terrain was sold out for so long.
No, well, he didn't get it. So he got because he was like he ordered it, I think. Because we ran an event there, I think in March, and he's like, "Yeah, I ordered it. Don't know where it is," and it came in after this recent restock, so it's incredibly popular.
Okay.
Yeah, it is.
So if you haven't headed over there, I would highly suggest it. And there's a link right there in chat to head over there, and once again, that helps support us because that train's dope.
And it got pushed behind like the revamp actually of like all their 40K terrain that they've had to be redoing because of the rules changes.
Yeah.
And so a bunch of the MCP, so they have 600 tables at LVO for the 40K championship.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's a 1,200. Like their 40K championship is like 1,200 people or 14. It's at that point, what's 200 people?
Right. Really? I had no idea it was that big. Wow.
No, it is massive, and that's just their 40K championship. So with all this MDF terrain, they make it and provide it for their events, and so the MCP being what it was, it's selling like gangbusters. We're like, hey, we got to get this stuff finished first, and so that's why some of that, they can only make that stuff so quickly.
Right. But yeah, so that's exciting to me to hear that they're gonna kind of have like a big chunk of that stuff to like travel with to all their events because that makes it so much easier for event organizers. That means maybe you'll be able to use a 3D printer for something else at some point soon.
Yeah. Well, I just keep, I'm starting to make these, since we're talking about terrain, so more themed tables. So there's all the stuff I had before, which is the city, the industrial, and kind of like the off-world, organics, crystal terrain, mushrooms kind of stuff.
I loved that, by the way, and seeing when you specifically, Tyson, go to other events and your display boards that have that like super deep purple like crystal formations all over the place. I think it looks rad as hell.
Sweet. Well, thank you. Yeah. Unfortunately, those are going to end up in the casual area, so I can't make any more of that terrain because it was a little hard to play on, even for like casual people, or at least competitive. Like the models were sliding on it a little bit, and they're kind of finicky where you got to place things, and they look really awesome, but they're not the most playable. But fortunately, I only have like 2 or 3 tables of that stuff, so it won't be too bad. But so I'm making a bunch of new terrain to go with this. There's the standard expanding on the industrial and the city stuff and just making more of those kinds of buildings. But one of the companies, the C27, they also do a lot of terrain,
Yeah.
and they do a lot of themed terrain packs. So I've been getting those and I've been making them. So we'll have like a Murder World Carnival of
Nice.
Death boards. So like tents and like the little animal cages and carnival games and that kind of stuff. Because I do care about having the tables playable.
Yeah.
As far as you can have these really cool tables, but then you can't really play on it, which kind of defeats the point of going to an event. Because there's nothing worse than, say, going to like back in the day, like a War Machine event, and they were using like old 40k terrain, and you're like, this
Oh.
game doesn't work. This
Yeah.
stinks.
Yeah.
So having terrain that's not made to work with your game and make things easily and to be as precise as possible while still having fun full 3D terrain, and all that kind of thing. So that's important to me. So there's a Murder World one. I've got a Danger Room. So it's got like all the weapons, and it's got like two side walls with like the control room, and then like tentacle claws coming out of the ground and coming out of the walls, and other bits and bobs in there.
Oh, I like
Then
that.
I've got kind of, it's an Egyptian themed apocalypse table.
Ooh.
What? I
the
want to
mut-
see that.
So the mutant apocalypse. So unfortunately, they did a big old pyramid that has like a big machine at the top of it, but the pyramid is smooth sided, so you can't even use it.
Oh.
And I let him know, like, hey, we need to be able, because this thing's like probably 18 inches square, like it's big, and it'd be awesome if it was stepped so we could actually put models on it. But yeah, but I'm using all the rest. I'm using the rest of everything. So there's like canoptic jars. There's like these treasure chest things.
Like stuff like this.
There's Yeah, exactly. Yeah, see, that'd be perfect. Like you could play in a more casual board with MCP with that. You just can't throw it. It's just something you move around on. And then there's something at the top you can chuck.
I do know
I like that a
running
lot.
events at a bunch of different like LGSs, like they just kind of assume it's like, oh yeah, I have a bunch of Adeptus Mechanicus style terrain or whatever, like the ruins. It's like, listen, Hulk, yeah, could probably throw a ruin, maybe if he got a good grip on it, but it's difficult to throw this type of stuff around. Outside of like those storage containers, I think they're
Yeah.
actually pretty good for MCP, like the
Yes,
hollow
for
ones.
sure.
But yeah,
But yeah, and so the sizing matters. And then I've got, what am I printing right now? There is a Sentinel factory with like a big cube that's got like the master mold,
That
like
sounds-
sitting on a chair, and it's like this big fat cube construct around them, so you can put them on the tables like a size 5 building, quote unquote.
I like
And
that a
there's, like,
lot.
How did they
Then there's,
keep
like,
getting
sentinels.
cooler?
Right? Yeah.
And then there's like sentinels being fabricated and other just like factory kind of stuff. And then I'll probably put that one. That one didn't come. A lot of these come with like specific themed mats that he'll do, and so I can just have Frontline print them with our scenarios on them, and we're off to the races. But I'll probably just use like one of their factory, like a generic factory mat or something. Will probably be fine.
And that's the thing I
And-
do really like about some of their mats is they work. I forget the name of the specific mat. Actually, I have a link for it that I'll put in the show notes to this. But it works actually really good for both Shatterpoint and MCP, and it's kind of one of the techie style maps that you can put honestly the space terrain on or the cosmic terrain. You could do cityscape with it as well, and it works great with pretty much anything from.
Yeah. Oh
Shatterpoint.
yeah, the Frontline Gaming, the Neo Tokyo Roads one or whatever they call it.
Yeah, something like
Yes.
that. Yeah,
It's like a futuristic city, and they got lots of purple and pink and like bright colors on it.
Oh, there's that one. This one looked more industrial. Like it's a lot of grays, yellows.
Oh, okay. I'll have
Looks
to
like
look.
like a circuit board almost, but like a city, not a cityscape, but it reminds me of a game called Total Annihilation, which was an RTS from like 1995. That was like,
I remember that game.
do you really?
Yeah,
Yes.
that was
so,
an RTS person back in the day.
Oh yeah, so yeah, that reminded me of like the scape there, where it's all like very metal and pipes and grates and stuff, and that's like kind of all it is. But like I think it works really good for a lot of that type of stuff. But yeah, so
And then I think that's it. I'm sure there's one or two themes that I'm missing. But I'm making a whole bunch of new, like how much more Steve LVO statues. because those seem to be kind of a
Yeah.
hit, and people wanted to buy them last year. So I'm making more so I can actually sell people some. So
I was gonna say, like, I know Brian, I think, got one. I keep seeing those around, so and I know that they were incredibly popular. So and that was one thing I was curious about. So I know at a lot of events, Frontline normally sells the mats that are on the table.
yep.
Um, how much terrain ended up like leaving from LVO? Because you did a ton of it, and I was like, oh, I saw people like being really excited about the Steve statues, right? Especially the ones that had
Yeah.
the Las Vegas Open thing on it. But like, I was like, oh,
That was really
how much is
cool.
he gonna have to redo like for next year?
I probably I only sold like I think 2 tables of terrain, but the only one I was selling is the industrial stuff because that's easy enough to reproduce.
Yeah.
Mm.
And so I can sell it because I was maybe, I don't know, was that $350 for a table, something like that. Um, so it's not exorbitant, but it's not cheap. But
Yeah.
it's got a bunch of print time, bunch of labor into it, and I don't work at Chinese factory rates, so.
Right.
Uh, and I also look at it, if I can make some money on it, it helps support the event. And so I probably plan to maybe have some tables for sale eventually next year. It just
Nice.
looks how once and I'll plan on a price and kind of have it figured out ahead of time instead of winging it. Because that helps us support the event, and I can make more industrial terrain. I'm not going to do any of the houses or the city stuff because screw painting windows. Oh my god, I'm only going to do those once, and I'm not going to do more of them. Oh, and then I've got a subway table, so that
Nice.
Corvus train, that subway table, and then I've got like an adjacent, like raised tram line table to do,
Yes.
That
and
sounds cool.
so that's another one. Actually, I've got the parts for it sitting behind me right now, and I've started painting it. So hopefully that one won't take too long. And then I've got my plans of doing my really fancy kind of scenic over the top tables that I've done for War Machine in the past. But that kind of starts happening once I'm caught up on terrain and making sure the event itself is kitted out the way I want it.
And so speaking of, so LVO is kind of the culmination of events all year long at LGSs, at other conventions, and that's one of the things that I think, and I think we talked about this a little bit at LVO, is that it makes it a little, it makes it obtainable. So like there is minimums and stuff, but for the most part, like you can qualify for LVO like without going to a huge major convention. Those are the dopest places to do it.
Yeah.
Um, but smaller LGSs or smaller events, you can qualify for the biggest MCP event that, as far as series goes of the year, um, really in a lot of different places. So, talk to us a little bit about kind of what that setup is like, what managing all of those events is like as far as taking that data in, and just kind of that process.
Sure. So the concept between or not between for the LVO Invitational Series was based on a circuit we had for War Machine back in the day, where you qualify at events and then you'd play in finals at Warfare, which is now known as Warfare Weekend at the end of the year, and they had
Oh.
a 32-person invitational along with all the other War Machine events that they used to do there. And so I based this off of what Gonzo had been running, and we came up with like how do we grow MCP? How do we make a cool event? And this also was part of the community document a bunch of us put together before we had the Challenger Pack.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still the community packet is on. So our website for the LVO Invitational Series is lvois.com. So it's pretty simple, pretty short. And that also hosts the community document. So if there's anyone that wants to run events locally, they can use the challenger document, but this also has like tie breaking if you want to use dice down because the challenger document doesn't have tie breaks. They say, hey, guess what? Your round's going to be 30 minutes longer while everyone finishes their game, and screw your schedule and screw your players' time, and you're going to bleed 15 to half an hour of time every stupid round. So which doesn't work for events. I mean, this is my opinion that we value players' time, and the event's going to start on time, and this event's going to be over when we say it's over within like 20 minutes. Because you want to go hang out with friends, especially when we're in Vegas. You want to go have dinner. So
Right.
Yeah. Hot
you want to
dogs.
do, yeah, like we've had events in the past where the event was running an hour late or an hour behind, or people just made plans early and weren't thinking about it, and they did like a 4-0 drop. They're like, hey, we're gonna go have dinner, and you had like 3 players 4-0 drop because they cared more about hanging out with their friends than they did about the event, which is perfectly fine. Like, we go to these events to make friends, to see the friends you see like twice a year. And for people who travel a lot and play these games, any game competitively,
Mhm.
winning starts not to matter as much. Like, you want to win, you want to do well, but you're there to have fun and see all your friends.
Well, and that's the
Because
thing, right? Yeah, like very specifically, like when you go to one of these events, everyone's trying to coordinate, like where are we going to eat, how are we going to do this, like how many people are going, and what groups are splitting into what. So I can certainly see like a little bit more organization certainly kind of helps people actually establish those plans. Because if you're flying across the world and you get to see those people that you only get to see once or twice a year, if that, um, it's important. And these aren't video
yeah,
games, right? They're miniatures games. You're playing with people in person, and you like those people. And that's one of
yes,
the dope things about MCP is that the community's dope as hell.
Yeah.
So,
exactly. Um, so the impetus was to help create community behind this invitational series. And part of our goal is having it open to as many people as possible. So having events, so it's, challenge or invitational spots can go to some stores that only have like 4 players that play, or and then also the large conventions. So I didn't want to lock it into like you only get to go to these huge events and that's the only place you can qualify for. I try to spread them out all over the U.S., and so we're not congregated all in one area. I make sure events that are close to each other aren't on the same weekends, and or even within a week of each other. So if you're within, say, 6 hours of somewhere else, I might ask you to do like a different date. Not that people travel all the time, but it encourages and gives people the option to like go travel, or like I really want to get qualified, so I'm going to go to these 3 or 4 events that are around me, or I might even fly into one to
right.
try to get a qualification. And so what a qualification means is at LVO we have a ton, and we'll go through the schedule for LVO, but we have a ton of open casual events and open different events, standards. Uh, standard format events, and then specific like alternate formats events. But then it's the culmination of the full year of our invitational series, where we have a 2-day event where we play three rounds and 3 rounds of 64 players that have been pre-qualified.
Yeah.
So and then there's a last chance qualifier at LVO, which we'll go over. So we basically grab together 64 players and they play in this 2-day event. And then you get to say, hey, I'm the best of the best. And even though it's a small subset of, a slice of the actual play skill out there, and there's a lot
Right.
of luck involved, but being able to have all the people that complain, it's like, oh, I can't qualify, or I can't do this because I can't I can't fly somewhere to do, the 1 or 5 qualifiers. Well, actually have your local store do one.
Mhm.
And we're not just limited to the 57 qualifiers that there's spots for. Once we fill all our spots, we have what are called points events. And
Yes.
playing in those events doesn't automatically qualify you for the invitational if you win, but it gets you points. And so on our website, there's also a giant Excel list that's got everyone's points from the different events they go to. And first place through 8th place gets points. And those are broken down specifically by how many players you have at your event. So the larger events do get more points. Uh, Whereas a 16 or less, basically first place gets 16 or 15 or 14, depending how many, those many players. And then second place gets 60% of that. And then it goes down from there. And what that allows us to do is at the end of the year, there's always going to be people that have qualified that can't come. So, there's a whole bunch last year for some reason, like, hey, I'm moving, or I just bought a house. You're like, well, good for you. I
Right.
guess and there's always like in our age brackets, there's always like, hey, I'm going to have a baby. My wife's due like, 2 weeks after LVO. Like, I probably can't come. Like, yeah, that's acceptable. I, I wouldn't want you to come either.
And
And
one thing real quick, sorry. So just a huge shout out. Thank you, Andrew Light Savage for the sub, and Xpaxis as well for the gift subs, guys. We really appreciate that.
For real.
It is vital to what we do. So thank you guys so much. But sorry, Tyson.
no,
Continue.
just stop me, because I can, once I get going, I will monologue. So as you need to, just stop me with questions.
Call me
So we
monologuing.
Yeah, so we don't get too far into that, especially when I'm info dumping.
Well, and you can
And then,
re-roll actually all your defense dice with an inspiring monologue too, so it works out.
yes,
I'm
exactly.
inspired.
Let's see, where was I? Oh, see, at points. So what happens is the people that can't come, I start taking the highest points on the list and work my way down. And a lot of times, like the people can't come, and I think I went last year like 15 spots down before I'd filled the spaces I needed to do between people not being able to come. And so, if you want a good chance to qualify for an invitational, LVO invitational, just going to like 2 or 3 events, and if you're, somewhere north of like 15 points, there's probably a good chance, and it's all relative to actually how many people points are getting. So if someone's, if there's like 15 people that are really, grinding out those points, like those just might be the 15, and they might have like 45 or 60 points each. But as far as last year, I think I went down to like 14 points before I just cut it off. And we do have a floor, and it might be 14 or 15 points, which is basically like 2 events. Like if you go to an event that has at least like 8 or 10 people and you go to 2 of those and you do relatively well, like there's a good chance you get 15 points out of that.
Well,
I gotta see how many points I have.
right, and in addition to the points, and this is something that I misunderstood at LVO this past year, was the last chance qualifier isn't just the winner of that getting into the qualifiers. Normally a handful, right, to fill out the rest of those
Yes.
spots.
Yes, so we have at the event, so starting Friday morning, we have what we call the LCQ, or the last chance qualifier, and it is an uncapped player event. So this year it's probably going to be huge that anyone can play, even if you don't want to try to qualify for finals on Saturday, Sunday. There's a whole bunch of people that just play in it for fun, and that we pull 4 or 5, I think it's 5 or more players out of to go into finals. So during the year we have 57 auto qualifiers. We have the one person from last year's winner from LVO that's qualified, which gives us 58. No, or I guess there's 58 qualifiers. Then we go to 59 with him. And then we pull 5 out of that for 64 total players. And if there's people that can't come, or because there's probably, when you start to talk to that many people, there's probably someone that might no show.
Yep.
Or I just go too far down the points list and I'm like, all right, here's our bottom cutoff. So last year we ended up taking like 10 people out of the last chance.
I thought it was more than that. Wasn't it like in the teens?
I don't know specifically. Charles was handling all that. So Charles is our wizard for the day of. He's our head judge for the event. He handles. So I should say, as I'm talking about all this stuff, the event doesn't happen without all the helpers that are there. The help throughout the year.
I was just thinking
Charles,
that same thing. Yeah, Charles
yeah,
and Danny.
Charles, which is like the face of LVO as far as like podcasting and talking about it and interfacing with others, helping organize all the helpers and getting them all on board. So he's indispensable with that, and it doesn't happen without all them either. So as much as I may go on and monologue about what I do here right now.
So last year, I know, I mean, outside of Charles, because Charles does a ton, there was you, Danny, Lexa White, Brian Watson. I feel like there's another one.
There was
Ron?
Is it Ron or Mike? And
Mike.
I didn't interact with the helpers too much, since I was doing a lot of they made me hall boss that year too. So like Friday, I had a lot of overhead of just like running around. I think I made like 10 trips up to the front desk, which is like
which was
a half
4 miles away.
That was so far. The first time we went down to that room, I was like, "Are we leaving the hotel?"
Yeah, yeah, it's a long hike out there. Running wristbands out to, and that was the biggest thing. It's like all the people that were helping, running wristbands out to people, and getting them inside the con and all that stuff. But yeah, so there's a decent chance between getting points. So back to the invitational itself, between getting points and then showing up for the last chance qualifier. Where we took like 10% of the field. So we try to go, if we can, if it works with the round numbers, because all we need is 5 or less undefeated players. So you could have a field of 300, and you only have to play like, I don't know, I'd have doing math on stream is always bad, but
Describing memes,
yeah, exactly. But you only have to run like 5 or 6 rounds.
Yeah.
to get to that number. Like very quickly, you can get to under 5 defeated, and still not and have not going forever. But ideally, we're trying to take someone that's lost a game too. Granted, that's by strength of schedule tiebreak, but it helps incentivize people to keep playing because you could drop a first round game. Because if you had two, say you have two really good players bump up into each other first round, and you still have a chance if you can, win all your other games, go through. And your strength
Yeah.
of schedule, if you lose against someone that's undefeated, your strength of schedule is usually be pretty good. Hopefully.
Well, and it was one of those things last year where we saw Kirchhoff, right? Vincent Kirchhoff played in the LCQ. Oddly enough, just happened to be the first game we had on stream.
Oh yeah.
Qualified through the LCQ, and then ended up taking the whole thing.
Yeah.
So between like local events, between some of the bigger conventions, between smaller conventions, between showing up for the LCQ, like there's so many ways to qualify into that final 64, into that big, tournament of tournaments. It's awesome. You don't know who's going to be there. You don't know who's going to qualify, who's going to get there, and how they're going to do, and what they're going to be running. I love that it's such a like just an open monumental like thing. It's dope as heck.
Yeah, and we try to format it in such a way that you're not exclusionary while still trying to be prestigious. So that's always a fine balance of how do we try to get as many people in here without it saying like, oh, it's just a old boys club of the same people that are in here, and I don't have a chance if I just play with my locals and I can't go anywhere.
And that's the thing, like between so many events to qualify, between the LCQ, like really everyone has a pretty solid opportunity to get in. And with different affiliations too, right? I think going into LVO, we expected a lot, or at least in this past year, we expected a lot of Guardians Thanos. We expected a lot of Brotherhood. And then, Dark Horse Shield comes in
and just cleans house.
Takes the whole thing, and it's just awesome to see. And if you're thinking about like, oh, well, tickets go live, chances are they're going to sell out, like just a forewarning.
FYI.
And you're like, well, I haven't gone to any events. I don't know if I'm going to be able to hit up this or this, or I didn't place well at Warfare Weekend or Second Wind or any of these events. That LCQ is still there. You grab that ticket now because there's
and all the casual events.
Yeah.
So, we encourage, because like, this last event I went to, I didn't do well at all, but I wasn't expecting to. I went there to have fun.
Yeah.
And, if I'm losing this game, like, all right, I've lost this game, but I'm going to try to do this. I just want to get that guy dead. And then if you want to keep fighting over it, like this game's over, I'll concede. Or, so you just find these little micro goals to have fun. And you bullshit around and you just have some fun. Once you kind of realize you don't throw the game, but it's like, hey, I've realized I've lost this game. I can see that you're going to outscore me, and I can do the math in my head for 2 rounds.
I do the morale victory thing all the time.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Dr. D wrote a really good article about setting obtainable goals that's on professionalcasual.com. Dr. D has been writing a whole bunch of really good blogs. But when I'm on a table and I'm getting just wrecked by a Malekith, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to daze him. That's my only goal now. I've lost this game. I'm going to just funnel buckets of bullets into Malekith.
Right. I'm going to play all my cactus cards.
Yes. Yep.
I'm going to get them
Exactly.
used.
I'm going to get Fearful Symmetry off.
Yeah, and you just have fun. Like, you'll learn something from that game.
Yeah.
Take notes. Most opponents are really gracious, and like, if you want to talk about the game, they'll say, it's like, all right, what could I have done better? Like, obviously, I had a big problem with this. Like the last game I played, I never played Red Skull, and I've only played with Malekith once. Like, I didn't even remember he had like the throw on his ferocity. Like, I've never used that. And then, so that's a big change. He's like, and your throw, right? I'm like, what throw? He doesn't have a throw in his card. He's like, well, read ferocity again. I'm like, oh, that last sentence. Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's one thing I'll say, especially for interviewing people after rounds in LVO this past year, was the people that you play at any level of competition, even at an event like LVO, they're very open as far as like, hey, I think you could have done this, or I think this was the mistake, or people asking for advice from players. The snootiness just doesn't exist in this particular subsect, which is really, really nice.
And I think that is having a a nice group of people that came into the game to start with.
Mhm.
Like a large portion of the players were, at the very beginning at least, were like, old MC or old War Machine players, and that was that same kind of, community mindset of, talking. And it's a tight rule set, so you don't have all the like rules lawyering that you get in 40k. So a lot of the people that just try to exploit the rule system, like they don't even exist. So like we're all playing the same game of MCP generally, as long as you talk about the terrain on the table, because everyone's got different ideas about what terrain is, depending
Yeah.
what they play. If they play competitively, if they just play local casually, if they play with just some random terrain they have, and how all that works. But as long as you talk about that, we're all generally playing the exact same game with the exact same smaller rule book, and we don't have a million facts, and we don't have 4 different books for our one faction, and
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
we don't have to mess with all that.
Yeah.
And I will say I'm super pumped for 10th as a Tyranids player. But it is
New Tyranids? What?
I
but
know.
there is since I started playing, because I
There's
started in
literally been one since you started playing
Yeah.
Tyranids.
So
Hey, that's
pretty
Tyranids
pumped.
are actually, I've been painting a bunch of Tyranids for someone, and he's
Yeah.
all hyped. He's all hyped about it, and then that's what I used to play back in the days in, 2000 to 2005 or 6 when I stopped.
Oh, that was a completely
Um,
different game
because
back then.
Oh no, it was entirely different. But no, because I played competitively and would travel around for it. And then so the games day games day in LA where I won my golden demon, like the
Congrats,
gold
by the
for my
way.
Tyranid. I also won their what would they call them? Well, I won their tournament there too, their 40k tournament. But they called those Rogue Trader. So I
Oh,
won
yeah,
the Rogue
yeah.
Trader there. That was, I don't know, 64 people or something like that, and then got a golden demon at the same time. So
All right, so first up,
Best weekend ever.
That makes me so
Yeah.
happy. So I knew you were a golden demon winner. I didn't know it was for bugs though.
yes,
So I'm gonna fanboy out a little bit. So
Wait, real quick, what was the model?
no, that's what I was gonna ask. You get out of here, Dan.
I thought you were going a different
Helicopter.
direction.
So what was the model?
it was a winged Forge World winged hive tyrant.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
it was kind of customized up, and actually, and if you guys want to fill for a second, I could probably find you a picture and I can dump it into our the Discord chat.
Yeah, dope. So, very specifically, just a huge quick thing here again. July 7th, Salt City GT. Guys, we want this. This is close to us as far as conventions that we have to travel to run things at or stream. It's the closest to us by
Be
far.
real nice.
It's still about 2 hours, but like, listen.
For us, that's super close.
TheSaltCityGT.com. Ben's going to be there. Alyssa's going to be there. Keebler's going to be there. We're all going to be there. It's going to be doper magopers. And a real quick side thing about LVO and the last chance qualifier, the LCQ. Guess who you won't have to play in the LCQ? All the people that
yeah.
already qualified. So as far as getting that chance, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna have to play against this guy to win, or this, that, and the other thing. Guess what? You don't, because a lot of them are already qualified, and they're going to be doing some of the side events that day. So
Exactly. Yeah. So we don't allow anyone to dream crush in the LCQ. And so we have another side event which we'll talk about that they can play in, but also a lot of them just come in Saturday, depending what their schedules are.
Yeah.
So it works. We try to work around it. And so I PM'd it to you, the picture. So
yep, I'm getting it up right now while you're talking about the
okay.
side events.
And then so, well, actually, since we're talking about events, and then we can go back to the painting thing in a second. So the event schedule. So Friday, we have our last chance qualifier. Oh, there we go. He's got it up.
There it is. Wow, I didn't expect that to pop up right on screen.
It's so
like
big.
But yeah,
It's like, where's this going to pop up on the overlay?
that is awesome.
Nice.
I mean, the
So
like
it
bone
doesn't hold
details.
up to like any of today's golden demons. Like it doesn't hold up at all. But 23 years ago.
That's awesome though, man. Like, congrats. I love that.
And then I've got a full army of about that quality for like my tournament army. So so they just live in a box. I don't know if I'll play 40k again maybe if it's the only thing I got around, but I got so many other better games to play.
Keebler, you have a Golden Demas finalist pin? I didn't know that.
You got Adepticon for his
This past
elf.
year?
Oh,
Awesome.
nice.
Hell yeah, dude.
Was it mounted Glorfindel? I think.
Dr. D also submitted a really good Miss Sinister into the Worthy this past year. That was really good. But sorry.
Too good.
But yeah, so I mean that was a fun weekend. Yeah, they were looking for me. They were doing like the Golden Demon Awards, and then I wasn't even there for like their tournament ceremony thing. And eventually, I just like walked over there and they're like, "Hey, we got
Nice.
stuff for you." I'm like, "Oh, sweet." Oh, it's like I won, sweet. Because back in that day, you had comp scores too, and comp
Oh.
scores will destroy you. I lost another. I got third place at another rogue, like a huge rogue trader. And I would have had first place if I didn't have 2 Rending Claw mutations on my Hormagaunts.
Oh,
Because
Ah.
of points you lose comp points for the amount of war gear you have. Like, so
Wow,
it's
that's
anyway. So
Huh.
really
That's
specific
interesting.
comp
Yeah.
points.
so if you want to know where Frontline Gaming's gaming group Zero Comp name came from, that was the whole rebellion against the comp scores in 40K Rogue Traders, which were frankly bullshit. Like you could rate your opponents, like, oh, how well did this game go? Well, if you want to tank your opponent, you just rate them a 0. Or if I did really well, we had a perfectly friendly game, but I absolutely crushed you just because it's list chicken. Like some armies just crush other armies,
Yeah.
especially back in the day when we're just fighting across the table and there's no scenarios. So if I just crush you, but we have a great game, like I'm really friendly, I'm nice, but if you're just butt hurt and I'm going to give you a comp score of 0, so like now I can't win
Yeah.
because you had your feelings hurt because you didn't win.
Yeah.
So like that whole, like I'm super glad like comp is just gone. Like because that's toxic and exploitable. Like if your game's not good enough to like just stand on win-loss record and you need comp scores to help even things out, well, maybe you should look at your game.
Well, and some of the premise of it like seems valid, especially like rating like sportsmanship and stuff, but it just never works out. Like I feel like
you said,
well,
because
it
it can
doesn't.
be exploited.
yeah.
It doesn't hurt to have like side soft scores for separate awards.
Yeah.
Like that's fine.
Or
But
door
yeah, if you try to,
prizes or yeah.
It's the only way I
100%.
win prizes.
Yep.
like you do a best general, like you could vote for like best general or vote for like a best opponent, like all those kind of things. Like those are great, but not having those tied into final standings
Right,
is
for
where
one-
they're easily exploitable. Because what happens if I have me and 2 friends play the same guy and he gets all 3 of us in a tournament and we both like collude and say, oh, I got him, I gave him a 0, and you were talking to your buddies after the round, like someone else gets him, like, oh, I'm going to give him a 0 too. And so it's just really easy to exploit that. The same way with at least at LVO. So in Longshanks, you can do like first round pairings to avoid player groups.
Yeah.
Or like locals, and usually that's intended to, like all your locals put your local store or whatever you want to call your gaming club is, and so you don't have to play each other first round. But what that allows it to do is anyone that is a really good player and wants to make sure they don't bump into each other first round, I get me and my 5 best friends, and we make our own little group, and we're all over the country or even nationally, and we're going to make sure we don't have to play each other in the LCQ or at LVO championships first round by doing that. So that is also, so there's benefits to soft scores and other things like this, which I think locally for small events, it's perfectly fine to say, hey, don't let locals play each other if you have like 2 people that drove in out of town, or you do your, if you're the TO, you do the random pairing and you see like the 2 out of towners are playing each other first round, maybe just hit randomize again.
Yeah, correct. And that is an option in there too. And I think some, especially newer TOs, aren't aware of that. The Longshank specifically has a bunch of very good features to kind of avoid some of those things.
Nice.
And it's a fine line though between being like, I don't want to, the top players or whatever collude to be like, oh, we're not going to play each other in the first round, so we're fine.
If it's an option, someone will do it.
Correct.
And that's
correct.
That's part of writing. Like, so with the invitational, the community packet, we have a whole bunch of rules. Like, so when you see people playing with chess clocks, we have all the chess clock rules in there. So which people should read, as far as like, it's not just tapping back and forth. It's like, when do you pause it? When are you supposed to switch it back and forth between active and inactive player, depending what they're doing, and all these little corner cases that come up we kind of cover in that document. We also cover sportsmanship and community standards and like the things we expect as TOs from running this stuff for like 20 years,
Yeah.
the way we expect you to behave at this event. So that's a great document for people to just copy paste stuff out of, use wholesale, take inspiration from. And not a lot of that is covered in the challenger document, which is fine because they don't. I could see them not wanting to get in the middle of the nitty gritty and writing like a steamroller packet with like an associated judge document like War Machine used to do.
Mhm.
And then where you get, then now all of a sudden you're the steward of how all this fine aggregate community interaction goes, which I can easily see them not wanting to get in the middle of.
Well, and we can kind of see that, right? Where we don't have, FAQs and points updates or threat changes and stuff all the time. It's the challenger document I feel is in a really good spot as far as a broad starting point and base, and then each convention or each local group or each tournament can kind of extrapolate it from there because they've left a lot
Yeah.
open to interpretation. I feel like kind of on purpose.
Yeah, well, and conspiracy theory here is, they could have put that out to also make sure I didn't what we did as a community, because the community packet came out well before the Challenger document, is to make sure what happened to ITC and 40K didn't happen to MCP.
I don't
So-
have a huge frame of reference for that, but
Well, whereas ITC basically became what 40K, like here's how we play 40K.
I gotcha.
And GW had no control over it. So
Gotcha.
by having that community, by having the challenger document out there, they have a format, that they've said, hey, this is how you should play your game in a tournament if you want to.
I gotcha. So before we kind of like get to time here too, the side events very specifically for each day at LVO. So Friday there will also be a singles event, correct?
Yeah. So it should be this year. Last year we had an alternate format, and then no one really had a lot of interest in it because the people that were already qualified that wanted to play, they just wanted to play regular War Machine, and they didn't care about giving away their lit. Or I keep on saying War Machine. Sorry guys. I also run War Machine at LVO, and I've done that for the past 12 years.
War Machine Crisis Protocol. I was trying to make a pun for that.
Exactly.
It doesn't fit.
So
super well.
yeah. When I'm not thinking about it specifically, like they're kind of interchangeable in my head as far as like LVO.
Yeah.
But anyways,
well,
so
like
we'll
the
have
WTC,
standard.
right? Two is like a War Machine, and now is bringing an MCP for it as well.
Exactly. So we're just gonna have a standard singles event to go alongside the championship LCQ, and that one starts later in the day. And then going into Saturday, the championship invitational starts, and that's all the pre-qualified people. But then we also have our gymnastics event, which is, in short, anyone can take a gem. There's a few restrictions, like Malkith can't have one, and Wong can't. I know, and Wong can't have one, so you don't get the portals, so you can't portal first turn.
Off of just
And-
Wong, yeah.
Oof.
Yeah, so exactly.
Good catch.
And so, because he'll get the extra power, he'll move it over to straight. It's, we don't need that. It's crazy anyways. But, so you can do, and your first gem is free, so you don't have to pay points for it. And they don't take up any slots in your roster either. So there's tactics cards or anything like that. They're just,
That's fun.
and then after that, you have to pay the points. So if, say you're playing Thanos, like 2-gem Thanos, your first gem on him is actually free, and then you pay the second one. So he's only going to cost you 7 threat instead of 8. And then
that's-
every other gem that goes on anyone else also costs its points on the card. So you got to have just craziness, all kinds of superpowers. Hulk with Space Gem, or anything. All kinds of crazy stuff.
The Space Gem is so rude.
I mean, it's all rude.
Yeah, right.
I just like
and
the
that's
image
point.
of Hulk with the mind gem, where just because it seems silly,
Yeah.
Yeah.
or he's like, "Get over there," and they're like, "Okay."
Or come here.
He's just intimidating them.
Yeah.
That's his mind game.
Chat, Keebler and Rev are talking in chat about more affiliation events at tournaments, and this is one thing that we saw at Adepticon this past year where people got really into the affiliation battle.
Yes. Connect to affiliations.
But
hard.
it's also both of the Brotherhood players in chat
Of
being
course
like,
it is.
"Oh yeah, we need affiliation only."
Yeah, that.
You already play affiliation only.
We've thought about that. We might do something like that as we're looking at space.
Yeah.
But part of it is like, until the new Wakanda what stuff, there's embarrassment of riches for like 2 or 3 affiliations,
Yep.
and then everyone else is like, I got this, and that's all I got.
Yeah,
Especially if you do affiliation only.
It was like Avengers, Cabal, Brotherhood, X-Men.
Yeah.
A-Force
pretty much
pretty
it.
good too.
Oh yeah, that's fair.
But yeah, there
So there's some limitations to that, which are good and bad, and but we may end up add something like that.
And one very important fact about the ticket for this year, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe this is what I read. When you buy your ticket for MCP for LVO, that gets you access to all the events, right?
Yes.
That are MCP.
So the way I run the War Machine and MCP events is one ticket gets you into everything for the whole weekend. So basically, when you buy a ticket, I know I have a table spot for you. Is what it is, and you can play it as much or as little as you want all weekend. And
so if you don't know if you're going to play on Friday in the LCQ, or you do qualify, you're effectively very variable, where you get that ticket and you're good for the weekend. You don't have to super worry about what you're going to be playing in each day, but
Correct.
It's just super helpful to kind of keep that really you can be not on your toes a little bit. That's probably the wrong way to put it, but it's open. It's nice where you don't have to super fine tune. Well, I got to play this in the LCQ, or I got to hit these things at this point, because listen, it's open. You buy the ticket and you're in. You're good.
You got options.
Yep.
Yeah. For each
and
day.
then Sunday we have a continuation of finals. So we have the last 3 rounds of finals, and then we also have a 3-man team tournament, which we have the rules for in the community packet, as far as like how pairings go, roster slots, and all that stuff. So no duplicate characters. But we're allowing duplicate team tactics cards, probably, and then because some affiliations not having certain tactics cards available to them really hampers them.
Yep.
And then of course the same crises. So anyone can use the crises, and then also all throughout the weekend we have something we call scrambles. So we'll have specific start times for them, and what those are is like small pods of players, 4 to 8 people that will start a tournament for, and we'll do the pairings for, and you just play 3 rounds. And we might have 20 people depending on how many people show up, but it's just gonna be 3 rounds, and it's a way to get in. You get 6 hours of MCP in, and then you're free, and you don't have to commit to a larger event. A lot of casual players like those because they don't feel, even though the events are very friendly and they're not, the timing, even with me being a horrible player, like I never clocked myself when I went to that tournament. 45 minutes each player is not too bad, unless you're getting into analysis paralysis, and that's when you kind of run out of time.
Yeah.
And then, but then your game's over. So, your game's not going to take 3 hours. Like it'll take an hour and a half, and then you're done. And then you can learn and move on.
And sorry.
No, and then we have, then we'll also do matchmaking pairings. So I think I was on Sunday, like someone was just sitting by the wall and they looked like they wanted to play, or they were lonely because they were probably there by themselves. Like, hey, you want a game? And it's like, sure. And then so I walked the aisles and did, hey, you want to play? You want to play? You want to play? You want to play? And I found someone and I put them together, because just like going to the bar, after you walk down an aisle and you've asked the third person, like, hey, you want to play a game? They say no. You're like, I'm done. So that's also what we're there for as, EOs, is to help you. Because a lot of us gamers can be a little socially awkward, or we're not the type A personalities that just want to, that can take 10 no's in a row and not feel like depressed about it.
I like that a lot. That's good.
Speaking, Ben, real quick in chat asked if Tyson went over why he won't let me win all the New York LVO qualifier tickets. Yes, he said no dream crushers. Stop trying to crush people's dreams, Ben. They're not made of metal.
I know.
But very specifically, the 3-man team event. So that was on Sunday, and it's on Sunday this next year, right? You said?
Yes.
So if things don't go well in the LCQ or in the Invitational, you have that really cool event on Sunday. That's a huge reason to stay. I know a bunch of people really enjoyed that last year. You kind of do.
We had a lot of people playing
Yeah.
in that, and there was a few people that were actually in the second day of the invitational. It was like, hey, like I'm gonna play, but like I really want to just drop and go play with my friends.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, if you really want to, you can. Like I can't. You're here to have fun, and whatever having fun outside of cheating means to you,
I like that kind
please
of.
do. Please do it.
At Ironwell just a couple weeks ago, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe Brian ran a 3-man team LVO qualifier. We streamed it, so those videos are going to be up over on the YouTube. But was that the first time that 3-man format that's in the community packet was run as an LVO qualifier?
Yes. Well, with the caveat,
Well,
it was points
yeah,
only.
points. Sorry, yeah. So that's a clear distinction too. But
Because I like, how do you pick? If I, anyways, yeah. Otherwise, you're qualifying 3 to 5 people, and that doesn't work.
correct.
And also you could propel people that don't really belong in it, through, because they could just, carry them on your back all the way through it. But
Which
anyways,
was mine and Dan's only way in for the most part. But
Oh,
shucks.
nuts. I think I've got like
Yeah,
2 points so far.
get a ringer to pull you through.
Right.
Yeah. No, but so yeah, so that was awesome, and I'm always up for like helping, again, grow their community and giving something back, and doing points for a tournament I thought was pretty fair. As fact, because you still have to do well, and you're still getting a top. Granted, we probably get a top 9 instead of a top 8, but that's fine.
Right.
As far as players, like, so one extra player gets a few points, but like you did well, you went and competed in this MCP, and I'm more than happy to have that part of our system, and I don't want to exclude it.
Andrew Late Savage is talking to Ben in chat and said, "Come to Pittsburgh's qualifier. We have no dreams."
He said, "Don't tempt me."
I mean, true. I mean, there is something to be said if you're a really competitive player and you haven't been able to qualify yet because your meta's just sharks. Like, travel to like one of these little qualifiers somewhere, and there's probably a pretty good chance that you might be able to get. You might be able to get in
the
there.
shark.
We saw a pretty good turnout to our last LVO qualifier at Bearded Dragon Games, because I think there was a handful of people that were like, "Oh yeah, I've watched the professional casual people play. They're awful. Let's go up there and just do it." Also, Ben's not going to be there to crush our dreams. All right. Because we had some people come up. I mean, Otis always makes an appearance, which is just so dope. He drives up from Maryland. And then we had people from Jersey, Albany, Syracuse. Like, we had a convergence, and it was super dope. But that's what LVO qualifiers do. Is honestly they motivate people to want to travel.
Exactly.
You meet new people. You meet new locals that might not be as far away as you think they are.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
go
like
out
in
for dinner.
Texas. Granted, Texas is huge, but they've got, I think, a pod of like 4 stores. I mean, but some of them are like hours and hours and hours away from each other.
Yeah.
So they'll have like 3 or 4 qualifiers throughout the year, between all these different stores. And all their locals will travel in this, giant 7-hour radius. I think I looked at the map once,
Yeah.
and they were kind of all spread out
So-
all over the place. But
I was talking to the TO for Lone Star Open, and he was talking about how there's like each city in Texas, like Dallas, Houston, Austin, everyone that's going to be going to LSO, they have like which one of these cities is going to have like the champion or the most qualified for, and they have like little inner store like ramblings back and forth. It's dope. Like,
that a lot.
that's the thing that I love about like not just your local, but your extended local, your full state, your time zone. Like there's a lot of that just really cool community building in this game.
yeah, because I'll go all the way down to like from where I live. I kind of live between San Francisco and San Diego. So I was just up in San Francisco for Bay Area Open, and then like I'll go all the way down to like San Diego for an event.
Yeah.
And so that's so you can roam it all around for it.
But I think so we're way over on time, but
We spent a lot of time rambling, but I don't know if we had good stuff.
Yeah. Is there anything else that we didn't get out there that is super vital for LVO or just in general that we have left off?
Only thing I would say is probably if you we still have points qualifiers that people want to run some local events and get some points. Go to the lvois.com website and you can apply for events there, and I'll be more than happy to approve them for points. And
that's
going
also
up
the
next
site
year, especially
where people can find the community packet as well, right? Is LVOIS?
correct.
Perfect.
Yeah, the community packets there's like 2 documents there. One's the generic community packet that we've put together between Warfare Weekend, Norbert, and some other people, Tim, when we all got together and put this together. Um, and that one's a little more generic. And then there's the LVO invitational packet, which has some more language that's specific to LVO and also some of our formats in there. And a lot of the information between them is still the same. But so that's where all our community stuff is. And I guess that's probably it. And we'll see everyone at LVO.
Yeah, and as a reminder, next weekend, the weekend of June 17th, it's my birthday weekend. We'll be driving to ACO on my birthday to stream the Atlantic City Open, Frontline's
Nice.
East Coast event, which we're super excited about. And what's that face for?
I was looking at LVOIS.com. I'm currently ranked 60th with
Whoa, look at this guy.
8.19 points.
Dude,
Yeah.
you crushed that buy every tournament. Like, I don't know if that buy's ever going to qualify at this point. But, oh, shoot, what was I saying?
I just got excited there.
And
ACO.
That's my
ACO,
name.
we're super excited for it. It has grown. MCP is growing at Frontline Gaming events in each area. We're super excited to see that and super excited to continue to see that growth. LVO tickets will be going on sale this Saturday, June 10th at 10 a.m. PST. So that's 1 p.m. our time here in the East Coast and everything in between. Make sure you're on there. You're using that code. You're using that link. It's in the show notes. It's in the description. It's on the website. It's on the Facebook. It's all over the place to get those tickets. And make sure you get them because LVO is going to be bigger this year than ever before. ACO is going to be bigger this year than ever before. And we're super excited about the year in between now and LVO next year.
Yep.
Last
And
thing.
then on the note for
Yeah.
tickets, they have a very generous refund policy as far as like it's right there on the ticket and it'll say like how far out you can get a full refund, and it's usually like a month or 2. But so if you're worried about getting leave or anything else as far as like family vacations and getting approved from your significant other, grab your ticket, and if it doesn't work out, just refund it. It goes back into the pool. We'll resell it.
You
So,
effectively
and then
have
also-
5 months to figure it out, kind of, which is like incredibly
Exactly.
generous. Incredibly generous.
And there were a
That's
few
great.
people that luckily were able to snag tickets after the fact from people that couldn't go after we hit the no refund date.
Mhm.
But there's a bunch of people who goes like, I couldn't get my leave figured out until like a few months out because they don't even approve leave until
Right.
then.
Right.
Or 3 months out. So there's a lot of those deadlines. So you can grab your ticket, you can refund it later. And then also Otis had a question of what's the minimum number of players needed. I'm assuming for a LVOIS event for a qualifier. There actually is no minimum. I've had some that had like 4 or 6 players. Now, granted, the next year, those will probably only be a points event because I don't want limited qualifier spots to go to like people that only have a 4-person meta, but I still want them to be able to participate.
Mhm.
And
okay.
but so any size, if you've got 4 people to put together a tournament, like I can make it a points event. That's fine. I want to give people a reason to play, a reason to be involved. I don't want to be exclusionary at all.
Which is, I mean, plays very well with MCP as a whole, right?
Yep.
Because it's very inclusive.
Inclusive,
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not good at wordsmithing sometimes, but
Good
and
word talking.
and even the competitive circuit that is the LVO qualifiers is still insanely inclusive. Like it's really nice. They shake hands very well. And if you're interested in the next LVO qualifier that we're going to be running, it's going to be at the Salt City GT. I know I'm saying it a lot, but we really want that event to be very, very good. So if you're in Syracuse, New York, or anywhere around Syracuse, New York, make sure you tell your friends. It's actually somewhat close to Canada. I was talking to Leland from Aegis Brand Studios. It's only like 2 hours from him. It's as far away from Canada as it is from us,
Yeah.
which is surprisingly obtainable. So we really hope that event goes off very well. So please check out thesaltcitygt.com. Grab your tickets for that. Hotel block will be up on June 15th, which is my birthday. So if you're
What?
seeing stuff for my birthday, be like, oh no, I need to get my hotel booked and my tickets for the Salt City GT. But Tyson, anytime we get to hang out or talk, like it's always so dope. Like I'm really glad
Oh,
you were able to come on.
well, this
'cause-
is the best because usually at an event we're always so busy. You say like, "Hi, here's a hug,
Yeah.
bye."
I'm like, oh,
I gotta go do this thing.
we gotta figure out dinner. It's like, we have like 2 more hours before close down, and it's like, yeah, it's always a lot at a convention, but it's always so great to see those people. But yeah, guys, thank you so much. Huge shout out to the subs tonight in chat as well, guys. We really appreciate that. Anyone that helps support us at patreon.com/professionalcasual or right here on Twitch with subs and likes and bits redemptions, we absolutely rely on that. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And in addition to that, make sure when you're buying stuff from Frontline Gaming, as an affiliate with Frontline Gaming, they sponsor the network and this particular show and stream. So please make sure to use that link. It is all over the place. And when you get your tickets for LVO, ACO, Lone Star Open, Bay Area Open next year, the cruises or anything else that you're using that link to help us make sure that we can be there to provide the coverage. So if you can't go, you can still get a little bit of that LVO or Frontline Gaming experience in the comfort of your own home. Thank you again, Tyson, for being on, and thank you, Dan, for just being you.
I'm here.
That's true. All right, guys, we'll see you
blast.
next week. Make sure to check out professionalcasual.com. We have blogs for MCP, learning how to paint, learning how to play, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. We have TTRPGs. Actual
We
plays.
forgot something.
Yes.
What?
Finish your thing first.
Oh, yeah. So we do Pathfinder 2nd Edition podcast called the Lost Omens podcast. There's additional podcasts on the Patreon as well. We do Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. The podcast is called the Grim Podcast of Perilous Adventure. And we stream every single day right here on this Twitch. Taylor does a hobby hangout. On Mondays, he just had Dallas Kemp on, painting
was a
some
great
Shatterpoint
stream.
together. It really was.
Ooh.
Some of the conversations they had, and that's the really cool thing I like about the hobby hangout, it is very casual. It's something to put on and chat while you're getting your own sprue
I was
backlog done.
building stuff.
Right? And just with Taylor talking to Dallas about like what motivated him. One of the things that I find very interesting is how people get motivated to hobby and why they do it. And Dallas talking about like he didn't have a local game store, so you'd just go, you'd crash someone else's game night at their house. You'd see the conversion that they did, and you're like, well, that makes me want to do better. I'm gonna outdo them, and like that's kind of stuff. Like I find so insanely interesting. But that was super great. Tuesday through Friday, I stream right here, 3 to at least 6, sometimes later. We're going to have a streamathon on Wednesday. Once again, I don't think I've said it enough yet, but for my birthday, we're going to do a streamathon. Effectively, every sound redemption, every sub, anything that comes in extends the time that I have to be on. Last time we did it, it went on 2 days. I think it was a total of like 20-something hours, and I still have 4 hours to figure out where to do some.
Oh, right. You still had time to make up there.
So June 14th, this next Wednesday, we'll be doing that. You get to spin a wheel. You can change the game. There's actually a bunch of rad, super cool stuff.
Wait,
People
why are
love
you doing a
spinning that wheel.
streamathon next Wednesday?
Because it's my birthday.
What?
But yeah, so gaming streams right now it's Diablo. We've been doing the cycle, some Blood Bowl. We have a Blood Bowl league on the Discord. Make sure to join that. All that other good stuff. All right, Tyson, what are you sending us off with?
The thing I forgot is this year we'll have, so one of the productive things from Adepticon is we will have Atomic Mass Games support at LVO this year too.
Nice.
Right? Which is like
So
Love
awesome.
those guys.
yes, exactly. So they're finally staffed up and they have support staff going, and so we should have. I can't talk about exactly what it is all right now, but we should have a giant old pile of stuff to give away and some cool exclusive stuff probably too. And
Heck,
so
yes.
look forward to those announcements as we get closer, and I'm let go to talk about things.
And that's
awesome.
And when that happens, we'll have to have you back on too, because just knowing that AMG is been like, all right, let's do this, let's get in. They have the staff now, they have the community managers, and shout out to AMG for really doubling down on being present in the community.
I love it.
And doing a lot of background work to make sure that local events, game stores, conventions, and stuff are going to have some really cool stuff kind of coming down the line. Is just doper gopers.
Good people.
Yeah.
Yes. All right, that's all I got.
But
That's
all
where
right.
I'm done now.
All right, guys, thank you so much. We'll see you. I'll be here tomorrow, probably doing some Diablo. If you want to kill some demons along with me, guess what? Tomorrow's the time. And until then, we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.